So this isn't really based on research or other videos. This will simply be based on my situation and my experience from that. So, come from a family of 4, mother, father, brother, and myself. And my mother always described my older brother as a colicky child, and would even say when she was holding him, he would stiffen up and try to get free from being held, and was just basically an infant that she felt overwhelmed by and wasn't able to satisfy. And then she described me as a baby as being the total opposite, basically very happy-go-lucky, very easy to placate, and very easy to stop crying. Okay, so then me and my brother, though, faced, from what I can tell, the same trauma, because my mother, I only really found out starting around maybe 5 years ago. My mother's a covert narcissist, and so everyone loves her. She's got this bubbly personality out in the world. She's always a lot of eye contact when she meets people. My dad used to joke that every time at a restaurant she'd go in the restroom, she'd come out with a new best friend. One of those types of people. And that's what makes it really hard being the scapegoat. But that's a different story. Okay, so, but I think the one type of trauma, and my brother, being the golden child, will never admit to anything negative happening during childhood. But from what I can tell, we both suffered neglect. So when we were young, according to my father, he went to college all day and worked at running computers all night. So he basically only came home for a quick meal or two a day. And, but I went through college, and you usually have 1 or 2 classes a day. So I don't know how he was supposed to be at college all day long, but that's neither here nor there. He wasn't home very much. And my mother, when my brother's 4.5 years older than me, and they lived in Bellflower, kind of a poor part of town, Los Angeles. And my mother had no car, no bicycle, so she was just stuck at home with a child that she felt was overwhelming and very, very difficult. And she was extremely unhappy. She was very happy before she married my father. She was, she's in fashion and art, and she was working for Bullock's, and she just got promoted to being a person that travels around picking out the new clotheslines that will be on the racks the next season or something to that effect. And my father made her quit, and said, "You're going to be a housewife and you're going to be the mother of my children, blah, 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 blah." So she felt like she had this avenue and pathway in life that was right up her alley, and she was very excited about it. And that got ripped away, and now she was stuck alone with an infant that was very difficult to raise. So that was an unhappy time in her life. This is her words verbatim. And then I was also born in that same residence in little tiny, 1-bedroom apartment in Bellflower. And I only lived there for the first 6 months of my life before they moved to a different apartment in a nicer neighborhood. But so for the first 6 months, And I'm always told I didn't breastfeed you because when I breastfed your brother, he was so difficult trying to breastfeed him. So that was kind of a little bit of a jealousy for me because, I was in psychology and I know how much psychological benefits come out of that, even for the mother. There's a lot of bonding and so on and so forth. And it's healthier than formula. Okay, so, but one of the very first memories I have is at like age 2.5, 3 years old, and it was during this big earthquake in, I think it was either 1969 or 1970, and I remember, running down the hallway and it looking like we were on a boat. The hallway was going like this. And that's where the memory first starts is, all four of us are running down the hallway to get out into the courtyard, out of the building. And so I remember that. And then I remember the aftershocks. And I'm standing in I forget what they call the thing of like a playpen, right? That has, bars and whatever. And I'm scared because it has wheels. And during the aftershocks, it would make the whole thing roll on the wheels. So I'm scared and I'm calling to my mother, who's like washing dishes in the kitchen, just like maybe 10 yards away. And she's not even turning her back, her front towards me. She's just keeping her back towards me, and I'm crying, asking for her to soothe me, and she's just telling me you're fine. So that's like really my first memory in life is being neglected. Not even willing to turn around and say, you're okay, honey, everything's fine, I'll be there in a second. No, not even turning around. So that's my very, very first memory in life. And then, we were allowed to walk around together. When I was 2 years old and my brother was 6 years old, we were allowed to walk 2 blocks away to the grocery store. And then when I was like 3 and my brother was 7, they had a go-kart. And I was allowed to drive the go-kart in a parking lot that had a cliff. And I almost drove the thing off the cliff. Other things like a telephone pole in a really steep mountain. We'd tie a rope up on the top and then grab the rope and swing over the fly way up into the air. So I was doing that at 3 years old. So just a lot of craziness ensuing from the very, very get-go. And then being dropped off at cousins' houses that were narcissistic, family, and just having the whole family kind of ignore me, having the uncle shame me publicly, and then several times waking up early and all of them leaving the house. And then I'd wake up, I'd be all alone in their house all day long with nothing to do, alone, and just not wanting to be taken there, but being taken there anyways. And so just a lot of feeling unsafe and being neglected, not being protected. I grew up in a neighborhood that was kind of a nice neighborhood with a lot of Jewish kids, and they all had curfews, and they all had people supervising, their parents supervising their homework, and, dinners made every night, and me and my brother, we didn't have any of that. Not to complain, but just letting you know that where this narcissism may have emanated from and how come one sibling ended up being narcissistic and the other didn't. So, but we did have the neglect, we did have the lack of supervision, and so that's not very good. Like, they threatened to retain me at the end of second grade because I had never done any homework ever, and we had homework every night. And so I fell very, very far behind, particularly in reading. And, I'm taking the blame for this. And having to go into reading recovery classes in the afternoon, and then me just going home and reading every day novels on my favorite athletes. So kind of feeling like, okay, if things are going to work out for me in this life, it's up to me as a little third grader, and taking the bull by the horns. And within a year and a half, I had fully caught up to grade level. But my brother was able to get good grades without doing homework and without studying. So that made my dad proud. And my brother was really good in sports. I was too, but obviously my brother was older and he was allowed to enter Little League and mainly all he did was Little League. But he was able to, enter Little League before me and get all that positive regard. So my dad never saw me as a valuable asset in sports, even though I was getting accolades. So my brother was greatly rewarded by my father for his athletic ability, but mine was overlooked for some reason. So I was the scapegoat. All the promises that were made to both Mark, my brother, and myself, the promises to my brother were kept, and the promises to me were not kept. So, one, my brother started off with a difficult personality, and that can make life more difficult. But he was given kind of high regard and accolades for his intelligence, getting good grades without having to work for them, and his athletic ability. But I wasn't given accolades for pulling myself up by my bootstraps and going home and reading novels every day, and having to be humble enough to have to leave class every day at 1 and go to the special education teacher and work and recovering years of lost time. That I think helped keep me humble, whereas my brother being so praised and regarded as being extremely intelligent and extremely athletic. Like, my dad would take me and my brother to go practice baseball, but I was shagging balls the whole time, and my brother was getting direct instruction, and then when I would get some direct instruction, my dad would get infuriated and really frustrated with me right away. So, just kind of like this shame and always feeling like, why can't things go right for me? How come my brother is always being praised and I'm always being, I felt like crapped upon. I hate to, use that expression, but that's how I felt, So once again, I'm just trying to outline how one child ended up being malignant narcissist and one ended up being more of an empath. Okay. They say narcissists start stepping into that role around age 7, because that's the age of reason. And they start to choose between, okay, I see a lot of this trauma around me, and I see a lot of discord, and I see the powerful and the weak, so do I want to be the hammer, like several people I see around me, or do I want to be the nail, the one that gets nailed on, like my little brother? And they kind of make a choice to start emulating one of the narcissistic parents and being more of the hammer, or, kind of choosing to be more of the type of person that helps others that have felt crapped upon like you did. So it was probably around age 7 where my brother really, really kind of started teasing me. And when we were in groups of friends, cutting me off whenever I would start to speak. And my brother taking great pride in swindling away from me whatever was my favorite toy at the time. And I really, really didn't have many toys. I remember for at least a good year and a half, like age 2.5 to like age 4, only really having blocks to play with. They weren't even painted or anything. They were just square blocks and rectangular blocks, triangular blocks, and I would try to make like castles out of those blocks. And just being at home alone with my mom every day, all day, and her just talking on the phone and cleaning, never playing with me, and her just constantly telling me, go play with your blocks. Leave me alone and go play with your blocks. Go play with your blocks. Go play with your blocks. And just feeling so unimportant and neglected. But, and then always getting teased by my brother, always having my favorite toys swindled away from me, and then having to like try to buy them back with like other toys. So he was always manipulating me and taking my favorite things from me and then laughing. I have your favorite toy and I don't even like it, things, that kind of attitude. So he was learning how to become really, really practicing these skills of manipulation and swindling on his little tiny, 3-year-old, 4-year-old brother, and me having to like, just tolerate, the differential treatment between the two of us from our father. I think we both had to deal with learning how to tolerate neglect from mother. But him having that more difficult kind of asinine personality, more rebellious, more arrogant, as a very, very young person, and that's going to cause more difficulties with your relationships with teachers and with other people, even kids your own age. And then me being a little bit more happy-go-lucky, according to my mom, but still feeling kind of shamed and crapped upon a lot. So round 7, I guess my brother started choosing to be that nail instead of to be the hammer instead of the nail. And me kind of just already gravitating towards goodness and wanting to help others. Like I had an obese friend that was on my little league team as like an 8-year-old, and I would stick up for him when he would get called fatso or get teased in any way, because I was kind of violent. My dad used corporal punishment with me and my brother, and my brother would, kind of wrestle me a lot and give me noogies and pin me down and see how long the spit can hang in my face before it would snap and spit would fall on my face. So I had a lot of anger. It was literally kindergarten age, like, maybe 5, where I knocked a kid out cold. His name was Ted. We later became good friends, but I noticed him going around and teasing every other male and making them cry and even being physical with them on the jungle gym. We weren't supervised back then. This was the early 70s. And he saved me for last because he said something about me that I guess was intimidating. And the second he came up to me and said the first bit of teasing towards me, I just came from south of the border and just clocked him so hard that he went out cold. I went totally out cold. That's the first time I ever knocked a child out cold, was age 4.5 or 5. So I had a bit of a reputation that I could stand up for myself, and when they would tease my friend Michael Bogadin, I would stand up for him. And so I always had this love of goodness. And it was around age 8 when I would get sent out into the wilderness where there was mountain lions and told, don't come back for 3 hours. I had no gun, I had no knife. I was just a little 8-year-old having to wander the wilderness up in the mountains where my grandfather owned some land. And I felt protected. I felt that something was keeping me company and was letting me know that I didn't have to worry, that I was protected. And so I now know that that was the Holy Spirit. But already I was gravitating towards that goodness that hadn't even been taught about, but that I just sensed a connection with. And then it was age 10 when at a Presbyterian summer camp where I invited the Holy Spirit to come, or Jesus to come take up residence in my heart and to always live in my heart. And it was a special experience at age 10. And later that same year, still age 10, I started Catholic elementary. I became an altar boy and wanted to become a priest after doing that for a couple years. And that's when my brother said, no, you're not going to be a priest. And I'm going to introduce you to nightclubs. And so he started taking me out literally to bars, punk rock bars downtown when I was 12 years old. And I went to my first concert, Adam and the Ants, when I was 12 years old. That was the first tour they ever did here in America. And then I got into Blondie, The Cars, Tom Petty, and then into more like rockabilly, Stray Cats by age like 15, Stray Cats, and even old Elvis Presley and all kinds of cool rockabilly, and then much more into The Clash and Sex Pistols and Buzzcocks and, Fear and The Germs and Stiff Little Fingers and all that kind of stuff, and, got into dating and violence, and was still always made sure I was on the honor roll, always was involved with sports. So I was kind of this dichotomy, this real thing where adults couldn't really make me out. Like, is he a really good kid? He works so hard on his schoolwork. He's the team captain of the swim team, the most valuable player on the swim team at this prestigious Catholic high school, Notre Dame High School. And yet, he's drunk driving, he's getting in fist fights, so I was a real dichotomy. But always promised the Lord that I would come back to him. And but this thing between being obviously the scapegoat, I feel from my experience is much more likely to become a narcissist. And the golden child, right? The golden child is much more likely to become a narcissist, and the scapegoat is much more likely to become an empath. But the scapegoat can also become a narcissist. But that's my experience, and it's gone on much too long. It's 23 minutes now. But I probably won't post this because it's so long and so much private information. But there you have it. Hit like, leave a comment. Adios, amigos.